me say a hearty good Wednesday morning to one and all. Welcome to today's edition of To The Point. Yes, it's Wednesday, the 1st day of April, 2026. Let me say good morning also to those of you via our social media platforms, Facebook page, YouTube channels. As usual, good morning and welcome. Certainly hope all is well with you this morning. It's April 1st. MP Ron Redhead, good morning. You don't get caught up in that myth, nah?
I have. Good morning, GT. Good morning to all of your listeners, both home and abroad. Grenadians, wherever you are, good morning to you.
All right. Yes, I mean, from the last time you were here, how's everything doing?
Well, so far so good. Notwithstanding, again, as we always try to say, we do have challenges, but we've been facing them and overcoming them bit by bit.
All right. You know, to kick this morning's conversation off, you do have the National Youth Rally coming up.
Right.
Tell us how it's, of course, preparations and so forth.
Right.
That's far going ahead.
So that's correct. So just by way of information, the rally was supposed to be March, the 29th. But given all of the distractions, I would say, or for want of a better word, we saw it fit to move it in the month of April. Mm-hmm. April 1st signifies a month that we want to focus on housing, youth, that sort of thing. And so it was a pleasant moment to note that the National Executive Council only last weekend agreed in full to continue with the date as April the 26th. Mm-hmm. And so on April the 26th, we are expected to host the National Youth Rally. Now, we'll have to make some adjustments, which we have begun to do. And the public can rest assured that we are taking a very professional approach with the youth arm. This is the first time of a significant nature that we are seeking to rebuild the structure of the youth movement that we had maybe sometime around 2013, 2014, thereabout. And so it's the second attempt in recent history to really get the youth going in a manner and fashion that we are satisfied that the party would have a second tier of leaders that we can lean on in the future. So it is very important to put that out there and for us to promote the young people and to talk a little about what they are going to be doing. One of the things that we are working on is to make sure that the voting process is going to be fully digital. We are hopeful that we have tested at least one software in the interim. There's another. And we are hopeful that it will be successful and we can lead out the elections on the convention floor through a digital means. This will be the first for us. I think the only time in history where we held the convention fully digital was during COVID-19. Yes. But that was largely through Zoom. And you still needed a large number of human capacity, to be bulked up in one room, etc., grouped up in one room, right? So what we want to do is to introduce new things. The other thing we honestly want to do is that all of the policies that we are putting forward is not just for now, but the future, building the resilience. And so we really want the young people in Grenada, Carriacou, Petit Martinique to embrace the philosophy, the policies, and the programs of the National Democratic Congress in a serious and genuine way.
You did mention, not cutting on you, but you did mention rebuild. It's sort of, the word rebuild kind of gravitated to me a little bit. Is it because they have, of course, you say the young people was not being disengaged or so?
No.
Point that you have to have that rebuilding structure for the youth?
No. Well, the whole setup that occurs once an election is over, the work, so to speak, falls down generally for all political parties. And so you always re-engage in a process of reigniting, reorganizing, that sort of thing. So it is not a question of not being there. It's a question now of doing it in a manner and fashion that we, the executive team present, is satisfied that work is being done in a significant way. The women's arm is very, very active, and they have at least now gone through about 2 conventions or more cycles, so they've been very active. And so this is just to say that we need to get the youth structure very active, notwithstanding that young people are there, they are present. account.
All right. Well, you're moving. The theme for this year's rally. Talk to me in reference to that. And the reason why a theme of that nature was put into fun.
Yeah. Well, essentially, one of the things we probably need to just characterize. We are promoting Vision 75. You saw Project Polaris only last week being, coverage being done for the sword turning, and you heard from a very progressive platform of speakers, Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable Minister of Finance, and project sponsor, Ambassador Andrea Sen Bernard, speaking there to the vision and as to what we are rolling out. And so particularly our position now as the youth arm, from a party standpoint, is one, to embrace that vision, and two, to demonstrate within the party structure what exactly the future we would like to see for Grenada Karakupiti Martinique. And so it is in its final stages to be fine-tuned. One of the reasons why we have been a bit slow, as mentioned, is because we adjusted the date. And so we've had to change up a couple of things, so which we are satisfied that is going well. And in the coming days, we would have the official ad running, and all of that information would be available soon.
Great. But we hopefully, as of course, the days and weeks come around, we will see more information coming out. And
what we're hoping is to have some young people participate in programs like these and to share and speak.
Their vision and so forth.
Definitely.
Going forward. All right. Everyone, there's the growing the conversation that is going around. In relation to what's going on in the Middle East, the impact it will have on small islands as Grenada, other small islands within the Caribbean. There's conversation, there's minimal conversation we're hearing, folks are saying, from the government. Not that there aren't any, but sometimes we would like to hear more. How do you assess the current situation in the Middle East and the wider global implications?
Well, first off, Honorable Prime Minister would be on this morning at a press briefing at 10 a.m. He would be discussing infrastructure projects, but naturally, the whole question of the disruption of the supply chain comes into mind, and so I am almost certain that he would be able to give us an insight as to some of the things that we are doing to help solve that. Construction plays a very pivotal role in our economy, and therefore the need for consistent supply of aggregates, among other things, to help the economy remain buoyant and help the capital spending to remain, is something that we have indeed looked at. Additionally, the whole question of the food security and building out the capacity locally to be able to produce food, and not just produce food. You saw recently the success, at least in this initial sense, we had with the U.S. fish ban being lifted. And so out of that situation, we were able to expand the markets and to tap into Asian markets, among other things. So just like the rest of the world, we are waiting. But certainly the principle is when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade and you find a way to survive. What we are encouraging our citizens to do is to manage our expectations going forward. These are very uncertain and unpredictable times, and therefore recklessness, aggression toward what people may say about our nation is not something that we want to encourage and promote at this time. We believe in ensuring that we build our capacity to withstand the shocks.
What would you say Grenada should be doing now in terms of preparing, for the possible, economic and supply, chain disruption? You spoke about it. You said folks should be a little bit more knowledgeable of their spending patterns or their use stuff. But what more should we be doing as a nation, in your opinion?
No, well, at this point, dialogue. We need to learn from other countries what are some of the areas that they are succeeding in to buffer the shocks. And we also need to learn to adapt at various stages. So we have the private sector. The private sector is essentially the driving force. The government helps to create the enabling environment. And therefore, the need for the private sector to be on the same wavelength, so to speak, as to the situation that is presenting itself globally is critical. We ought not to, as I mentioned, engage in recklessness. And so what it really requires a lot of dialogue, different sectors, groups coming to the government, speaking, suggesting, talking about different ways we can reduce overall costs, among other things, to be able to survive. So at least where we sit, We believe that we have started the task, as mentioned, in terms of the diversification of the fishing market, among other capacity that we are building out for food security. But it will not only stop there. The whole question of cost of living is something that we are honestly looking at, and the whole question of energy costs as well in the country.
Yeah, because, these are important issues that you hear. Those are the everyday conversation you're hearing these days. Yeah. The availability of information from outside sources, sometimes it may not always be relevant to our situation.
Correct.
But somehow we always have that trickle-down effect. Yeah. Yeah. And you hear folks, and you hear other countries talking already about, who are already complaining about the low gas and the supplies and the costs that they are already incurring. So we want to know what is going to be happening for us here.
So for us, clearly, as mentioned, there is no separation between discussing our local situation now and the external situation on a global scale, right? So as mentioned, you have the disruption in the global supply chain. You have the hike in oil prices, which is going to result in a hike in our energy costs that we pay as consumers. And so those things will have implications already for I would say average incomes, right? And it will take a toll. So, of course, the individual from a micro level would now have to start thinking of different strategies that they can adapt for themselves and families to begin to collaborate from their individual level with the necessary policies that might be put in place to help cushion the impact and effect. But there is clearly a vast difference between what we can do as opposed to the shocks that are coming from external factors.
So pretty soon we should be hearing from governments, ways in which they will help, what they'll be implementing to cushion this effect, of course, on the regular citizens.
Right. But I wouldn't want to preempt, but what I would say honestly is that we have been doing different things from a governmental standpoint, and I'm certain that the Ministry of Finance is well positioned, well placed to be able to speak to some of them that carried on from the last budget presentation that is ongoing now. We also do have different diversification strategies that we have adopted to be able to cushion the effect and build out the capacity. I think for us, the issue here is knowing how to survive this initial wave of global uncertainty. And I say initial because we can't predict the future. We don't know what may emerge. And, we are also susceptible to hurricanes, natural disasters, etc. And so in terms of building up that local ability to buffer additional shocks is something that we are very keen on. We do have different areas that we can always tap into, but for us, we need to continue creating the enabling environment so that business can thrive and that they can expand and that they can be able to provide jobs, etc., that is necessary to build the economy.
All right, great. We drew for a break. Let's take it. When we come back, we continue the conversation. Stay with us, focus to the point. Classic Radio GBN TV. Don't forget, May the 30th, King of the Grill, Monroe Plainfield. Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back.
Right choice. Get ready for the explosive energy of the 53rd Carifta Games. The Caribbean's brightest young stars are descending on Grenada for 3 days of pure speed, power, and passion. From the first block start to the final relay leg, witness the future of world athletics right here in the Karate James Athletic Stadium. When? April 4th to the 6th. It's time to feel the passion, celebrate the performances, grab your flag, and follow the action live on GBN Television.
GBN's broadcast of Carifta 2026 is made possible by Glen, Energizing Grenada, the National Lotteries Authority, Grenada Sports Council, Flow, My Finance Grenada, Guardian General Insurance OECS Limited, and Guardian Life OECS Limited.
Athletic fans, the time is drawing near for the most anticipated junior athletic game in the region, the 53rd Carifta Game, right here at the Kirani James Athletic Stadium, April 4th to April 6th, 2026. Get your tickets now and be part of the incredible excitement the athletes will bring, both on the track and in the field event. It's going to be a spectacular display of young talent and sheer determination. We've got options for everyone. Finish line tickets, day pass, just $120. Season pass at a fantastic $350. The main pavilion offers a day pass for $60 and a season pass for $170. Even our secondary stands are accessible at $40 for a day pass and $100 for the season. And for the ultimate budget-friendly experience, bleachers are only $25 for a day pass and $60 for the season. On April 4th, we're kicking things off with a bang. And to add to the visual, supporters are encouraged to wear green on April 5th, yellow on day 2, and on day 3, red. Let's paint the stadium with pride, and the excitement does not stop there. An added attraction is a vibrant cultural village, showcasing our rich cultural heritage with tons of excitement daily. You truly don't want to miss Carifta 2026. It's a celebration of sport, culture, and community.
Anyway, welcome back to our listeners. Welcome back to our viewers once again. It's To The Point, and I have with us this morning MP Ron Redhead with us this morning. He's the peer of the, of course, National Democratic Congress. MP Ron, I want to talk to us about of course, we had the groundbreaking ceremony. Was it on Friday last?
Yes, Friday last.
Of Project Polaris. Mm-hmm. By all indication, it was a success in terms of the launch and everything. There are still pros and cons in terms of the conversations with it, but the launch in general, let's chat about that just a wee bit. Project Polaris, the launch, as it is right now, is launched. The groundbreaking ceremony, I should say, more or less. We heard all the great speeches and so forth that came out from both the Prime Minister, the project ambassador, and so forth, all other dignitaries who were there speaking in relation to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, essentially, the sword-turning ceremony or groundbreaking was significant because this project, by its magnitude, is something that ultimately might have taken 6 years to at least be to this point where we could talk about groundbreaking. And this administration must be given credit for doing this in record time, particularly project sponsor Ambassador Andrea St. Bernard.
Yes.
Excellent work. And, the whole question of her stick-to-itiveness to ensure that this was a government policy at the level of the cabinet, this was agreed, and she stuck the guns to make sure that we got to this point. The Ministry of Finance also has played a very pivotal role in being able to come up with some of the best terms of funding this new research hospital. And particularly, we need to highlight the Ministry of Finance because there are a number of talks being bandied out there. But, essentially, with everything you do especially as it relates to business, there is going to be some level of risk.
Yeah.
There's a risk analysis that is incorporated into projects of that magnitude, and you would have to weigh the pros and cons and to determine if the benefits outweigh the risks. And in this instance, I can tell you the benefit does outweigh the risk. The magnitude of resources that it is required for the project is not only in the general hospital, the new hospital that is to be constructed by 2029, but it is in the medical village to which we want to build out, because the ultimate vision, in accordance with Vision 75, is to make Grenada into a medical tourism hub. We see benefits in that because just like you have sports tourism, with the construction of the aquatic center, we are now going to be able to have swimming regional events here. That is sports tourism. It means that from a standpoint of tourism and linking sports, you are able to attract people to your country more than you will normally have during the normal tourist season. And so because tourism plays a pivotal role in growing the economy, being able to diversify your tourism product is what we are getting at. And so when we rolled out sports tourism, it was a direct strategy, introduce rugby, introduce other things to be able to expand your capacity, and you needed facilities for it. You see, we had to do upgrades both to the athletic stadium and the cricket stadium to make that a reality, including lighting the cricket stadium. And so the General Hospital at present cannot function as that hub. Just for us as locals to get to there is like a hike. And so we have to be honest about it, and having a new hospital is critical, and even more so now because of the overarching vision. And so that is what it is about. We have been able to raise $180 million already, to the goal of 250 million for the city or village, want of a better term. And this amount is specific to start the construction of the new research hospital. We are currently engaged in a 15-year agreement with Mount Sinai, where we are expected to see quality improvements over a particular period. And therefore, this was critical for us to start improving the service delivery of healthcare. So even before you talk about introducing national health insurance, the quality had to improve, because you could, implement national health insurance.
And it's the same old.
And the same old, and then it would have, failed. Mm-hmm. So you didn't want to do it in that manner. And so the government obviously got good advice in terms of the approach taken now to improve healthcare. It is not something that we have looked at from a piecemeal, haphazard lens. We are looking at it from a genuine form of resilient development. This is addressing the now. It is addressing medium term, and certainly when the medical city is rolled out, it will address long-term goals for the health sector.
Concerns have always been raised in terms of the cost.
Yeah.
And the affordability of Grenada as a small island in terms of affording, of course, the concept that has been presented thus far, the magnitude of it. Mm-hmm. Can we afford it, would you say?
I would say yes, and this is me being genuinely optimistic, because the cost to build good healthcare today might be expensive, but in 10 years from now, it will be way more expensive. And then we might be talking about not being able to afford it. And so what I think we need to do is to sit and, as mentioned earlier on, managing the expectations and trying our best to understand how Grenada fits into all of the global, regional, and national situations, and how best we should position ourselves to be able to capitalize on opportunities and, of course, buffer risks where we may see them. So, for me, that investment in healthcare now is important. It's probably even 20, 30 years too late. But the fact is, you need to start somewhere. And so I think that it is putting us on a good path. What we have to do now, like some people have raised, maybe genuine concerns about ensuring that we do not have another white elephant, so to speak, being constructed, and we don't have the workers, etc., to be able to roll out this vision of it. But this is why we are making genuine changes. Now, you heard, for example, this issue of doctors training at SGU, and the government, in collaboration with SGU, opening up additional scholarship opportunities so that we could have more locally trained doctors, and then obviously they could be engaged to work at the new research hospital by the time it's completed. Training takes about 4 years to become a doctor, and the estimation is that this new research hospital is going to be built, at least opening doors sometime in 2029, and we are committed to remain faithful to that promise.
And as it stands for the present general hospitals, of course, are we going to continue to see growth in that in terms, because it's still going to have to hold its end?
Yes.
Its end in the interim as the new one has been built.
Correct. And so that is why one of the strategies of the Ministry of Health, which is so critical in the grand scheme of things now to make this succeed, is to build out, in addition to the new hospital, the local community medical centers. Yeah. At present, because the hospital has its own limitations and challenges, the dependence on the general hospital alone for all of our medical needs from all over the country is a futile process, and it is probably leading to the overwhelming of the staff at the general hospital. So one of the things the Ministry of Health is doing is to upgrade a lot of the medical stations across the country, right? I don't have the list in front of me right now, but I can tell you it's an expansive one. And it speaks to genuine upgrades, including the Carriacou Petit Martinique situation where they were impacted by Hurricane Beryl. They also are getting a piece of the pie, so to speak, to be able to upgrade their stations. In some instances, generally, it's going pretty well. A number of them have been completed. The Minister of Health only recently gave an update at Parliament in terms of where we are at. And the expectation is that once we continue to roll that out, new programs will be introduced. So one new strategy is the opening, for example, of the pharmacy. I just forgot the exact term as we speak now, but the point is the opening hours of that had been adjusted, because prior it was almost in line with normal, ordinary working hours. Right. Pharmaceutical, right. So it's now expanded, and the hours are much more convenient. I was on a class last night, and we were talking about benefits. And, do you believe that flexibility on your workplace outweighs your pay remuneration at the end of the month? And it was almost lopsided towards remuneration. But when you started discussing alternative benefits, in addition, fringe benefits among other things, in addition to your pay, you got the sense that this might be more interesting and could determine if I would stay in this workplace or not. And so the work hours is important, because you can now introduce shift system, where you don't have to pressure one individual right through to stay, and then once the hour reach, even before that, they get up, they pack the bag and they go, and then people are left, in a sense, without medication of the ability to purchase. So that is something that we have been resolving. We have introduced a new procurement system. Prior was a manual system, was subjected to a lot of human errors, and was a problem because it meant that in some instances, if you don't have a strong procurement background, when stuff is reaching its limit and the systems are not in place to say, well, we now have only 2 of this, and etc., you can't. That's the point. So you couldn't plan with the manual system. So we have now introduced through the Ministry of Health, and kudos to the Minister of Health and his team, a digital system. I am not in a position right now to say how it is going, but I am very confident that update could be given maybe in the next number of months on its progress thus far. So this whole issue of medicine at the general hospital sometimes was not really an issue of money. It was an issue of the procurement mechanism that was being used to be able to have supply of medication on hand in a sustainable fashion. And so this is important because digitizing a system like that is going to bring some benefits. What we need to do now is to be able to learn the system so that it doesn't matter who holds the position of either procurement officer or the person in charge of the department, they can be able to adequately plan ahead so that the hospital is not left undone with medication that might be life-saving in some instances.
Making assessment much easier.
Making it correct.
Much easier.
Correct.
If we will be due for a break, we're going to take it. When we come back, we continue the conversation. Stay with us, folks. It's to the point. We are 25 minutes moving up. We're probably going to be tapping into the lines a little bit earlier this morning than usual. For listeners and viewers out there, if you do have a question or two as related as the conversation rolls on, feel free to do so when we come back in the next segment. Stay with us, folks. To the point, Classic Radio, GBN TV. We'll be right back.
When the day's done, there's only one place to be. Jump it up. April 25th and 26th, the Kirani James Athletic Stadium comes alive. It's the Classic Lighting Communal Credit Union Invitational Games, the final showdown. Come witness all clubs battle for glory one last time. Gather your posse, take your stand, and jump up for Bankers Association, Hubbards, DG-Cell, Huggins, Grenlec, Nawasa, Prisons, Police, Busmen, and Flow. This is rivalry. This is passion. This is Grenada on fire. April 25th and 26th. Kirani James Athletic Stadium. Don't miss it.
Get ready for the explosive energy of the 53rd Carifta Games. The Caribbean's brightest young stars are descending on Grenada for 3 days of pure speed, power, and passion. From the first block start to the final relay leg, witness the future of world athletics right here in the Kirani James Athletic Stadium. When? April 4th to the 6th. It's time to feel the passion, celebrate the performances, grab your flag, and follow the action live on GBN Television.
GBN's broadcast of Carifta 2026 is made possible by Grenlec, Energizing Grenada, the National Lotteries Authority, Grenada Sports Council, Flow, My Finance Grenada, Guardian General Insurance OECS Limited, and Guardian Life OECS Limited.
Saying a special good morning once again to our listeners, our viewers. Of course, we tapping into the phone lines a bit earlier than usual this morning, which means those of you via, of course, the WhatsApp, you can also have the option of calling in. The direct line also, that option is open to you also, 435-2041. The lines are open, and so you have that option of asking a question or two. CMP, if we could accommodate you this morning on that. Let's take our first caller. Caller live, good morning.
Yeah, good morning to you and to the honorable gentleman.
Good morning.
You know, I can't support this project, Polaris, because I'm concerned, gentlemen, about the debt. Right now, we have a debt to GDP 73%, not in line with the stipulated 60% as required by the central bank. So when you say about almost $500,000 that are going to be going up, that debt, I am really concerned that when that debt come up, right, we wouldn't be able to pay it. Also, I'm thinking about in terms of the affordability and the accessibility for the ordinary Grenadians. We wouldn't be able to be living in that hospital, right? So what I am suggesting that this government goes back to the original plan that we had. That thing with the hospital is nothing new. It goes back since St. Louis days in the first NDC. We had an agreement with St. George's University for a teaching hospital, right? There was a partnership. The land already was identified. Deacon and all spoke about it in the project thing. I think that was the better idea. With that plan, it would have been better. So I'm suggesting to you all, because there's no way Grenadians going to be able to afford that, right? Go back to that original plan that we of the 2008 to 13 have, that is a bit better. Not all this amount of debt. Because when you really look at it too, this thing about ministers giving a salary every month, once a year, this thing should be voluntary. You can't force somebody to give their salary. So I have a concern about that. And finally, my friend, politicians always talk about unity. So I want to invite you and all the politicians down. I've said it on the program again, opposition and government, to a breakfast on Saturday on the Carnage Plaza at 7 a.m. in the morning. Let's all meet together. You're talking about Unified Grenada. That is the ideal purpose time to Unified Grenada. And don't forget, the party's color is not yellow, gold. And also, we must also hear from the other General Secretary, what's his name, Orlando Roman, only you alone. We need to hear from all other people. But the bottom line is this, that hospital is of concern to people in terms of affordability. And you're hearing 1 minute you're hearing it's a teaching hospital, 1 minute you're hearing a medical city, a medical tourism. We don't know exactly what it is. We would like it to be what we wanted it to be in relation with the St. George's University, that thing, a teaching hospital, and the people would be able to afford, the Grenadians would be able to afford it. But right now, they have a problem.
Caller, thank you. Right. I think we, of course, got a point the first time. Thank you so much. Anything you want to respond to the caller in reference?
Thank you very much, Mr. Ivan. Point well taken. What I would say is, as it relates to the question of the debt to GDP ratio or schedule is on par. Even with the passage of Hurricane Beryl, it did not disrupt us so much, and so we are on target to reduce by 2030 the required amount, a percentage of that. The other issue that I would raise is that the loan agreements or arrangements that we have since signed on to are some of the best historically that Grenada has been engaged in for projects of this magnitude. So that is 2. 3, as it relates to affordability, now, and probably to tie in your last point about the perceived confusion, what we are saying, which is clear, the General Hospital, the new research hospital, teaching, research, whichever you want to call it, that General Hospital is going to start now, which is what we turn sod for, on the property where we would have a medical village. The medical village essentially is a combination of this new hospital, which is expected to open in 2029, and other amenities that facilitates the whole question of the medical village. So there should be no confusion as to what we are talking about. What we are saying is the goal is to enhance our tourism product by being able to market Grenada as a medical tourism destination. In addition to what we are building the new hospital for, we will have additional amenities. And the whole plan is laid out. There are a number of consultations that have gone on with the stakeholders, and one public consultation, or at least 2 public engagements that have been done since the commencement of, or recommencement, if you put it that way, of the plans to build a new hospital.
Okay, great. A great explanation there. We do have another caller. Caller via WhatsApp. You're live. Good morning and welcome.
Pleasant good morning.
Good morning.
I think the MP GT kind of gave a briefing of it as someone who worked along with the St. George's University. There is a reason why the St. George's University cannot or would not send students when you finish doing your studies down there to do the residency in the current hospital as it is. It don't meet the standard. It in no way it meets the standard, and it is not modernized enough to do that. And from what my understanding was when I attend the Project Polaris, according to what Ms. St. Bernard and Mr. Telesford has said, in this new hospital that they will be constructing, not only it will replace the old one, it will also allow for things like the same residency to take place, because SGU been calling on us for this thing to get it done for some time. In terms of the loan is 1%. You can't get any better than that. That's just like GDP, 1%. I don't think you will get it any way better than that. Now, to my main contribution this morning, a lot of people sometimes we quick to talk, but we don't listen. It is good for us to listen and also understand. Because anyone who listen that attend Project Polaris, they break it down in the simplest form as possible. Now, MP Ron Redhead, to you know, I'm happy to see that the construction of the Willis Main Road and the Constantine Main Road is currently going on, and I've been clamoring for that for the longest while, that we get good contractors to do these projects and them. You have some contractors, they come for the work, they bid for it, and then when time to get it done, they blow up most of the money in some cases. Now, Reno is doing that work down there, and it's an excellent job that we're seeing right now. The widening is exceptional. And for a young man like you, I know most of you opponents, they always tend to speak about you young. But I always believe in the young, because the Bible call the young people forward, because the strength, the energy, and the way that we do things is always different. So I'm very happy for that. And I'll give you a recommendation also. There is a bypass road that can go up to the Annandale Fall, correct? Not the Annandale, just to let Grenadians know, the Annandale Falls, and come all the way over to Mango. That could be a good bypass road in the next budget cycle whenever you're going in Parliament to budget on the behalf of North East. If you could get that done for us in short order, we'll appreciate it. But for now, forward it on our Ron Redhead. You're impressing me, and you continue to do so. Continue doing your good work, sir.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Very, very much.
All right. We do have another caller via the direct line. Good morning. You're welcome.
Hi, good morning to you,
Good morning to you,
and to Parliamentary Representative Redhead, and to your followers. First, let me say that I believe that there is always a need for a strong opposition to bring forward the other view of things. We must have a strong opposition. I also believe in transparency. And I believe also that we should not underestimate the value of public involvement and public debate. And I think this government is not one of the strong points in terms of, what they call the term they normally use of, bringing things out and discussing. Although the Prime Minister is changing that a lot with his DMs and other things that I do not follow because I'm not internet savvy as some of you. But to me, the opposition is trying to eat the cake and have it at the same time. On one hand, you're clamoring about the amount of money that's being spent, but then you're still asking for a wealth of data, detailed data that has to cost money to produce. I would say that the NNP has a bad reputation for doing things which are without data. For instance, we had the case of the failed breakwater project. Now it's costing probably even more money. They never did an EIA. They just went ahead and they did it anyhow. And now we see the cost. As we say, the old people say, the praise is more than the funeral. Costing us a lot in the back end. It ruins people's homes. It ruins people's lives. No work done before. Another big one that many people don't know about was that famous chicken farm for Victoria. 60-something million US, I think it was, that went down the drain. And I happened to be involved in an effort to revive that project. And the first thing we did was an EIA to determine what impact that will have on the community around. Another thing is not, and you know what we discovered? We didn't even do the feasibility, just the EIA. Cost a few $1,000s, not much. You know, we discovered that this project would have never, ever happened. It could not have happened. Can you bring a 100-foot container on the West Coast to Victoria? Where would that pass? You're going to go all around the East Coast and come back down to Victoria? If you want to erect a state-of-the-art poultry farm and to bring the quantity of food and other things that you needed in large quantities, can these containers go up on the West Coast? If they did a feasibility, they'd have noted that this project could not happen. That's why it's always so important to spend money up front, to see what these pitfalls are, see if it is feasible to do it, see if it is good for the environment or harmful, and look at what you can do to mitigate or abandon. So I think the government is having the right approach. I think that $75 million, I'm hoping, involves the purchase of the land and all the other things that must be done and all the other feasibility and all the things that must be done to ensure the project succeeds. The opposition has a reputation for running without data, doing crazy things that cost us millions in the end. Good job, my brother. Good luck with the project.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much.
Thank you, caller. And I would like to place on record that from this show, I'll be going to the community to erect one of the solar lights to which you have advocated for a senior in my constituency. But I would say that, to me, is the crux of the point. And so as a political party, for example, when we had the opportunity of government cabinet briefing the party on the planned Project Polaris, it was not a question of this hurry-scurry thing, we're looking for votes, that kind of thing. It was substantive. It dealt specifically with the necessary infrastructure that might be required, an assessment of the said property. And if you notice in Andrea St. Bernard, project sponsors presentations, she always speaks about the flowing river or ravine which runs through or around the center of the property, and she talks about how it is going to be incorporated into the whole question of beautification, one, and two, how it is going to help in terms of being able, because that is a flood-prone area because of its topography. It's a pretty flat property at this point, and then you have elevations higher up. So the EIA is something that will be continuous too, because you need to always assess and reassess. New things may happen. We could have an earthquake, God forbid, and something could open up that we didn't foresee. Extreme rainfall, etc., could cause changes as well. And so we must always be prepared for that. So yes, part of the monies that was spent were to be able to do some of these things up front, in addition to purchasing the property, but to ensure that once we are launching this project, which we have done in terms of turning the sod, it is going to be built on a solid foundation.
Okay, great. We do have another caller via WhatsApp. You're live. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, GT. Morning to your listeners and viewers, and good morning to the esteemed guests.
Good morning.
Sir.
There's so many things I want to raise, but before I forget the main thing, one of the things that is lacking, and I've been pounding that for a long time now, is the approach we do to the approach we have in this land. Unless we have a community-led development approach, a lot of the things, although they are noble, it would not be achieved. We have to create a sense of solidarity among our people. People are very competitive, sometimes very destructive to each other. So we need to find a way. And I'm not talking from just a party political, I'm talking from a national point of view. No, we need to find a way to encourage people to see that they have an obligation to invest in the country, not just, I don't talk about financial, to invest to make this place a better place to live for the generation that is coming. So unless we have this approach, a community-led development approach, and not the so-called private sector and all that thing, they're not interested in the welfare of the country. They're interested in the accumulation of profits. So anyway, this is one. The other thing I want to raise is the issue of the resolution in the United Nations about the greatest crime against humanity. In other spheres, there's big conversation on what that means. I'm not satisfied with the whole of Grenada, our response. I know there was a little piece of news with the chairman of the Reparation Committee, Ali Gill, and somebody else. But this is not enough. There's lots of conversation going on in the world right now. What does that mean? How can we ensure that we contribute towards the reconciliation, or the fact that the people who are affected, including all of us, are compensated one way or the other? And I'm not talking about money necessarily here also, but we need to have greater conversation. And finally, Mr. Minister, in relation to the hospital, I wouldn't talk about it on the air, but don't mind having a conversation with you. I wouldn't want to join in the fray where people make more confusion and anything, but there's some concern I have. Anyway, the last point is, which I'm forgetting now, Anyway, thank you. And forget the other point.
Okay, great. When you recollect, you can always give us a call back again. Yeah. And anything you want to say?
Well, reparations, that specific issue is something I agree with the caller on, and I think maybe as a party, we could begin to look at it and discuss internally, potentially. I think the true essence is dialogue, because slavery may have dealt a severe blow in terms of the crime that was committed against black people in particular, but I could tell you blacks are being discriminated throughout the world still today, even today. And so what we need to do is the dialogue, how much we should not try ever to return to a scenario where black people are enslaved and deprived of their basic human rights.
All right, we do have another caller. Caller via the direct line, you're live. Good morning, welcome.
Good morning, GT, and good morning to you. Yes, Honorable Ron Redhead.
Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah. Ron is sitting in the capacity of MP for not East, yeah? Okay, what I want to say, when you look at this new administration, people are clamoring, people are complaining that this new administration is doing nothing. Things are bad. But come on, even the blind man could see what is going on in this country. Look at the amount of construction work that is taking place. All the schools from Grenville, there are 3 schools in Grenville, Paul's Anglican. There are schools in St. David's being built. You have the Simon Industrial Park being taken care of there. You also have work being done right now on the breakwater in St. Patrick's. Yeah? Now I start running pipes. Young men, you're passing people walking in the night. There's night work now in Grenada. And people are saying that there is no work, nothing is going on. What's wrong with some people? They just criticize it for criticizing. Say, the mindset, what we need to really do, we have to blame the past administration for the mindset being set by the past administration. In other words, before they give somebody, teach somebody to fish, they've been giving them fish free. So that is the problem we're having now. People are used to getting things easy, handout. They are used to getting things easy, and they don't have the right mindset to go out there and work. But they want the money. Even with the Imani programs, there were people sitting at home and do not going to work and getting a monthly stipend. Huh? How this could be? All over the country, there is work going on, and people are complaining the country hard. Huh? We need to stop this one. That's what I want to say.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much. Thank you for your contribution this morning. We do have another caller. Caller, you're live by our WhatsApp. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, GT. Good morning, Ron.
Good morning.
Honorable.
Good morning.
All right. If you guys hear me cut off them in the subway, okay? All right. Let me make my point quick. Okay. I think one of the problems that we have in Grenada is traveling. When a lot of people don't travel, they only could see what in front of their nose. You understand? So a project like that, a lot of people go have a problem with it because they're listening to others. You understand? But if you go to consultation, the meeting, everything, you'll understand what a project is. But I'm asking anybody to tell me which project that you know that a country undergo and there is no debt. All of we talking about how we go pay the debt. We had a previous government that cost Grenada over $500 million. Nobody's speaking about it. I trim from just a few. Okay, Ron, my question to you, all right? The administration had promised us that every first quarter that the MPs and them will be coming to the constituency and give an update. Okay, we see a lot of projects been going on. All right, I know every Wednesday you get 1 hour to come and GBN, and explain certain things. Ron, my question to you now, when we going to start having town hall meeting and you guys explain, look, project going on in Sotters, right? And one of Peter David, representative for St. Patrick, said that nothing going on, not even a project. And while I was speaking to him, I was speaking to somebody in Grenada, and they tell me they just see a truck come out full of debris from the breakwater project. So you see? So when you see this propaganda and them spreading out, we need to have the town hall meeting. We need a rally up east. You guys will see what's going on in front of you guys. Next month, I think the Prime Minister is going to be up here in May, and I'm going to have a conversation with him. We have to step up, brother. Have a good day.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much.
Thank you, caller. Well, I think sometimes we get a bit distracted with walking, which is what we were elected to do. But it's always very good to inform and update, and we commit to doing so as best as we can on almost every project. When we're in a position to, we will say, again, I want to take the opportunity to remind the public, the Honorable Prime Minister would be on this morning at a post-cabinet briefing, giving an update on infrastructure. That is the ministry and other projects.
All right. Everyone, we of course have gotten to that time of the morning. It's already 10 a.m. And it's going to have to take a wrap for today's edition Up to the Point. I want to thank you as always for popping by and sharing the conversation. You're always available at that call.
Well, I might be too accessible now. I'm just joking.
We'll thank you a whole lot, and best wishes for the rest of the day. I mean, no Easter is coming. Happy Easter in advance.
Yes, man. Thank you, and same to you.
All right. Hey, folks, that's where we're going to take a wrap for today's edition Up to the Point. I want to thank all who contributed. Have a good one, folks. That's where we say goodbye. Don't forget King of the Grill coming up May the 30th, Monrouge Plainfield. Folks, be there. Goodbye, folks.